Action!
Welcome to Filmmakers Focus. I'm Doc Kennedy, and today's focus is crowdfunding. We all have different projects we're working on that we would love to have extra funding for, whether that's $500 or $500,000 or $5 million, whatever it may be, that extra kick to help us take it to another level. My guest today is Chris Hoffert, and Chris is working on a series called The Big Muddy, which they're shooting in Montana. It's a Western, and I talked to Chris over the phone. Just a great conversation, and he has a lot of background in crowdfunding, and they're doing that currently for The Big Muddy. So we're going to dive into that just shortly. Real quick, I want to remind you to head over to the Facebook page, the Facebook group, join in the conversation there. Also follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and feel free to tweet out this stuff. Get it out there. We want to share this with as many people as possible and just get the word out on what we're able to provide with the podcast. I'm excited about some guests that we have lined up for future shows, so you want to stay tuned for this stuff. And we're almost halfway through the first season, so this is just an exciting time. Also head over to the website, filmmakersfocus.com, and sign up for the newsletter there. We're going to do some fun stuff, probably on a monthly basis, because I just don't have the time to try to do a weekly thing. But sign up for the newsletter and get involved that way. And just let me know how I can help you, where we can help you, where the community can help you. We want to get the right people on to share the information that you want to learn. So now, without further ado, we'll jump into crowdfunding with Chris Hoffert. Chris Hoffert, welcome to the show.
Hey, nice to be here.
This is pretty exciting. You've got some interesting projects going on, and we'll jump into that. But why don't you just give us a little background on how you even got into filmmaking?
Well, it's actually kind of a interesting coincidence. I never actually started off in filmmaking in like a traditional sense. I was studying martial arts about 2005 or so, and then a buddy of mine, we got contacted by a guy in Hawaii who was working on a Star Wars fan film, and he wanted some martial artists to train some actors, and so we started volunteering our time and helping out, and kind of came on full time. The 2005, 2006 for that, and then moved into actually doing like military liaison work for them, and then met up with some other martial artists, and we kind of formed our own little guild, and then we just kind of would train actors. And in the process, I started doing some film work on the side with him, moving cameras and just recording stuff, being kind of like a, like a lowly camera, B cam operator kind of guy. Started to get into the cinematography of it a little bit, and then bought my own camera, just a little, run-of-the-mill piece of junk, $300 special. We deployed to Iraq in late 2006, and I started doing some documentary work while I was over there, documenting sort of the day in the lives kind of thing of deployed troops, and producing unit history videos and things like that, and got into editing and more advanced cinematography and a lot of that follow-on post-production work stuff, and that led to writing and sound design work and the things that go into that post-production world. And then I just started directing, writing a lot of my own work and directing it.
Wow. So were you into films as a kid? Was this something that you'd had on your heart as a dream?
Well, I hate to say that the TV was a babysitter, but I did enjoy watching TV. So, Saturday morning cartoons and, stayed up late for Tales of the Crypt and things like that,
Yeah. So it wasn't so far off that there'd just be a crazy notion that you would fall in love with it.
No, I never, honestly, I never would have thought about it. Even in high school, I took like a little high school run production news sort of class and whatnot. And, I had fun. I wouldn't say it stuck or took or anything with it, but, kind of just to fall into it haphazardly like that, And, sometimes you just find a love in something you didn't necessarily know was there until you start doing it.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, the projects that you're working on right now, you're making a Western, and I'm curious why that genre is working for you.
Well, Sins of the Past was my first jump into the Western genre. I wrote it and we started preparations for it in mid-2014. Originally it was designed as a film school final product for several of my classes that I had for the fall semesters. And, I picked a Western because, my dad is into Westerns. And, him and I hadn't really done anything together on film work before. He knew that I was into that stuff and was doing it, but he never was personally involved with it. But, I kind of pitched the idea to him, and I said, hey, I got this idea. Maybe we should do a Western. I know I got to do a film school project, so why don't we just do a Western? And he kind of fell in love with the idea, and, we started pitching it to other people, and then built a little team of reenactors and local talent, local crew, put together a production for it, raised a little bit of money for it, and then, ended up with episode 1 for this project that we turned it into is now a series.
So had you done fundraising at that point? Before that, was this your introduction to making all that happen?
Well, I had done one crowdfunding campaign before that. The one that I did for that was much smaller in scale and scope. But the one that I did before was for one of my first big leaps into more professional cinema, which was a military short film. Being in the military and stuff, I had some things that were bothering me. I know a lot of guys, have issues bothering them. So a bunch of us, we got together and wrote and produced a military drama, which really goes into PTSD and the military. Some of the problems that are facing veterans nowadays, and we didn't want to talk about it. We wanted to visualize it so that people could understand, some of the things that we go through. And so we launched a Kickstarter campaign for that one. I had never done it before, but it was a first for me. It was a real learning experience. Fumbled through the whole process. It was a hot topic. Got lucky. We raised, I think, the final numbers after all the overhead. I think we cleared maybe about $5,000 out of all of that. And which allowed us to procure some additional equipment, some additional cameras, make some HD upgrades, necessary items for the new age cinema. And then we just took whatever time that we could get, and we put, the scenes together and went out and we shot them. Took about a year to finish and produced it, and actually made quite a bit of noise. We raised several $1,000s for Montana charities. And was actually able to make a pretty good impact with, some of the PTSD care here locally.
That's fantastic. I love that you're able to take what you're doing with motion picture and really impact lives in a positive way. Well,
I don't know. I hate to say I've been around the block a couple of times, but I've been around the block a couple of times, and just life experiences, after a while it kind of humbles you up, puts your priorities in focus, makes you realize what's important in life,
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things that life has kind of taught me is that it's precious. You use what time you got. Try to make as big of an impact as you can on, whomever or whatever you can, and always be humble about it.
So having that experience in doing the crowdfunding there, how have you been able to use that experience to make the Big Muddy impact that much better?
Well, I took the two campaigns we did previously, the Unsung Heroes one and then for the student film. I took a lot of the personal experiences of the trials and errors that I learned in that one. I took a lot of initiative, and Google is your friend. I have learned this. Google is a great tool for a lot of things if you wanna learn something and you don't have the funds to go to a school for it, or if you don't know anything about it, Google it. Yeah. So I did a lot of that, searched out a lot of tips, techniques, tricks, and then I ended up doing an entire semester on it in film school. And that whole semester, which was this last semester, was all designed around developing what we just launched here last week.
How do you go about getting the community involved? I'm really curious on this part because I think one goes with the other. If people are willing to back you with cash, they're going to be willing to back you with time as well.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of obstacles, I guess, that come into crowdfunding. Some of them are pretty obvious. Some of them you kind of run into along the way, and then some. It's about being flexible. Getting the community involved from a monetary standpoint, it's probably one of the tougher things you can do. But one of the techniques that I like to do and has proved well because it serves the budget well, you're not trying to fly in talent and crew and things like that, is to outsource and hire locally. For smaller budget work, you're going to hire people with the understanding that, you're not going to be able to pay them full industry rates, but you start pulling from the community, and those people within the community know people within the community, and eventually, once the word gets out and people are comfortable that you got a good product and that you're going to do a great job, they see kind of the process that's going on. They learn who you are, what you do, and go out there, execute a few production days and things like that. When it comes back around, you got those people that are kind of already in place and they're ready to support you because, you demonstrated that one, you had the ability to do what you said you did, and two, that you did what you said you did. And that's kind of how we approached Sins of the Past. I went into a Western, other than having watched them extensively, not knowing anything about actually shooting them. Yeah. And so, it was just basically me and my dad to begin with. I had a script, I wrote it. Him and I started having some ideas about that, and I started emailing some people that I knew that I had worked with on the military piece, and they reached a couple of people that were into the reenactment business, had done some local production work here. Some of them have pretty extensive experience. We just, started up some conversations and kind of went from there of introducing this guy to this guy and that guy to this guy until we pulled everybody in that we could for that one production for that student film, which in the scheme of things was actually a very large student film. It had a 19-minute run time, and I think at one point we had well over 20-plus people on the set at any one time. All for a budget that, when everything was said and done with, was only $2,700.
Wow.
So, it was quite I would say, the magical piece of stars aligning and the right people coming at the right time, knowing the right people. When we went into this one, we had all those same people again, and they loved it last time. They had a really great time. And I says, okay, well, maybe we should do this. People thought it was a good idea, and democratic decision, we decided to make it a go.
Wow, that's awesome. I love that you're able to work with the same people. That sort of tends to be the trend when we're doing this line of work, and it just makes things run that much smoother.
Well, I won't lie. It is about who you know, whether it's, big Hollywood scheme or low indie film stuff. It's, people that know people that get you something or someone at some point. So if you're not plugged into a network like that, you probably won't be too terribly successful. So part of that is, networking, doing work, getting out and talking to people, doing little bits of work with people, show them that you're good at what you do, or, that you're going a certain direction, or, just make it an enjoyable experience. I got a lot of people that like to come out because they enjoy it. They have a good time. We do professional work, but, we keep it light in between. We have a good time. Personality conflicts don't exist. Everybody feels that, they're a valuable part of the team, and they are, because everybody plays such an integral part, because you can't hire the assistant to be assistant like you can in Hollywood.
So there's going to be some people listening, Chris, that are looking to fund the film that they have, and they're just burning to get it out there.
Mm-hmm.
What are some tips that you would give them for launching their first Kickstarter campaign?
If you want my honest opinion, get some money and hire somebody. Lord Almighty, it is a lot of work. Crowdfunding in itself is almost entirely a full-time job. And, people think, and one of the misconceptions with aspiring filmmakers that don't know a bunch about the crowdfunding, and I was guilty, I was there once too, is they think the minute they launch a campaign that money's just going to start rolling in, and it doesn't work like that. Sure, family, friends, the people you talk to, they're going to give you a couple of bucks, but you're going to hit a wall and you're not going to be able to overcome it. So I would say the single greatest crowdfunding tip that a person could have is have a plan for success. And that's one of the things that gets harped on in film school. And our instructor was she's been doing this for a really, really long time. And she's got real world projects that she's working on to launch that she's been working on for, in some cases a year to prep them. So you need a plan. That plan requires time, and that plan and that time requires, a strategy to get there. And so you got to prep, and then you got to put all the key things in place before you even ever pull that trigger. So don't jump the gun, and develop a smart plan to meet a realistic goal.
So we're a few weeks out from the end of your current campaign. Why don't you just take a couple minutes here and explain exactly what you guys got going on and give yourself a plug?
Sure. Yeah. I hate promoting myself because I'm prideful and I feel like that I'm bragging, but we have a lot of the returning talent from the first go around since the past. We, through a unanimous decision between many of the executives that we have, decided that, we just did a Western. It's pretty good, had a great response from audience, academics, and even professionals that work in the industry. We decided that, given all the shortfalls that we had on the first go around, that our way to remedy that was to write a series that, basically starts with that first film as episode 1 and follows the main characters through, this whole gamut of, life, basically. It's a lot of life in it. There's, relationships and growth and maturity on a lot of different levels, action, and, you get that Western stuff too in there, which, is quite the flavor, and I love it because of the dynamics of it. So we decided to write it out, script it out, and then that we would try to raise money to do it. And so about 3 months, I prepped that campaign for launch, getting all the things in place that I was talking about earlier, lining up the networks, talking to people, stamping the earth, digging up the people that I could way before we ever even launched it. And that way, when we launched it, we already had financial backers that were ready to go in place. We had producers in place ready to go so that we could at least, start reaching minimum goals and start reaching for some of those longer goals that would get us into, better filmmaking by allowing us to outsource a little bit, getting us, into distribution levels and stuff like that. Some of us are dropping, us executive, the producers, we're dropping a lot of our own money on it too, to couple with the crowdfunding campaign and everything so that we can actually reach some of those final levels. And there's still a lot in the work too that, sometimes you don't get before you get to launch. And a lot of that is advertisement. So I'm working on some advertisement deals right now to even push us out even further into some deeper crowds and maybe raise some of those final stretch goals and everything. But yeah, we're going to be filming this summer, fall, and it's going to be a good time. And I know everybody's excited. I got all the department heads working overtime in their personal lives to get costuming in order, do the final casting, line up some photo shoots for poster work and things like that. So we have all that pre-production stuff going on too, while I'm raising all these funds too. At the same time, I'm pretty busy. So I recommend another tip for crowdfunding is make sure you have time to dedicate to it. If you don't, then it's not going to go anywhere. So you got to put the effort and the time into it. So, but we're going to release this. We have a few networked contacts out in the LA scene. They're actually working on as consultants for us. They're going to make sure that we're meeting industry standards. And then the goal is to reach a distribution level, and that would be a first for us as far as beyond, DVD and digital download sales, is actually reaching a distribution deal with a major international backer, and, like Netflix and Vudu, Hulu, places like that, you can get in. I'd like to say you can get in for cheap, but a few $1,000s isn't necessarily cheap, which is, where the crowdfunding and stuff comes in real handy. But that's what we're reaching for.
That's awesome. So I love that you mentioned that, because that was on my mind too. What's the game plan on the back end for just making it worthwhile and trying to gain a little bit more on your investment?
Yeah, well, gaining money back is a great thing. And, the rule of thumb is if you do an independent film, you're doing good if you break even. Yeah. The distribution deal, I would say, is probably a dream goal. If we can get to that level and get it out into a forum, even if it takes a little bit of extra time, that's sort of our dream. That's our ultimate big goal. My realistic goal, and something that we're already planning for, is to do our own red carpet premiere, and we're going to do it in the town that we're shooting. So we're going to have, as much as the cast and crew as we can get out to support that. It's going to be a big community event. We're going to advertise around the whole state for it. It's going to be kind of one of those, mini red carpet premiere kind of things where people show up, take some pictures, and we'll have some people in costume and character and things like that. One of those, like $5 at the door kind of things, and then we're going to take a good percentage of those proceeds. We're going to donate them to the theater to help them out. We're going to look at doing some donations to some of our historic societies here too to help their programs out. And then when people sit down in the theaters, the intent is to play all 5 installments back to back, which is runtime wise going to be just about 2 hours. So it's right about feature length in there. So not too short, not too long.
That's awesome. I love your game plan.
Well, you got to have a plan. You got to plan around the plan too. You got to have plan B's and C's.
Yep.
I kind of went into this with an idea of what might happen. I developed a strategy to try to get to where I want it to be. Right now, we're right between those 2 marks, which is really good. So, kind of sort of my conservative estimate was, maybe we'll be able to fund only a couple. Maybe we won't find advertisement. Maybe we won't get the word out enough. Maybe we won't be able to raise the full amount. But the dream goal being to reach, the $20,000 mark and get to the distribution level and all that kind of stuff. That's the dream goal. And then sort of the want goal in there is $12,000, which will give us, a good bit of funding for every single installment, which would allow us to do some pretty good filmmaking. Anything beyond that, is a little bit extra per installment to throw at it for, food or, insurance for doing some a little bit crazier things where insurance will bite you in the rear with the dollar amounts based on what you want to do. So if you want to do crazier stuff, you got to pay a little bit more. So we're looking at options too. So every little bit that we can get extra allows us a little bit more flexibility to go a little bit more, I guess, if you want to say Hollywood in the scheme of things, a little bit more Hollywood with it and what a person can actually do. We're talking horse stunts and a little bit more outlandish things that for a smaller production company you wouldn't see, which will put us on a little bit higher playing field on the backside too, just based on the cinematic value of it, and the audiences I think will love it too. So we're all willing to go as far as we possibly can go with or without money.
Well, this has been great, Chris. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you're super busy and pushing this thing. Thank you for giving your time to us. You have any parting words?
Well, if I am obviously a busy man. I run about 5 full-time lives, but if you post up my contact information, Facebook, anything like that, if you've got people that have some more in-depth questions. I know we only kind of touched the tip of the iceberg here. There's a lot more to it, but if you've got any aspiring people that need some realistic motivation, they can feel free to reach out to me, and then as my schedule allows, I'll get back to people. I'm not one of those types that hoards information and tries to make myself look good, because when it comes down to it, you with a camera alone ain't going to do it. Yep. You need actors, you need cast, you need crew, you need a team, and so you need to develop a team mentality, and that's something that I excel at. So, whoever knows, you might meet the next Steven Spielberg. Who knows, and you help them get there, and he might remember you and hire you for a job one day. It might seem far-fetched, but it might happen. Yeah. So people can feel free to reach out to me, and I'll get to you, in turn and in fashion.
That's awesome. We'll have your contact info, Facebook, Twitter, etc., in the show notes. And I just thank you again, Chris.
And not a problem. Thanks for having me.
And cut. That's a wrap.